Hey, tonight we're not going to the sun-drenched coast of France. We're going somewhere else, somewhere colder, a city that wears its ambition like a steel coat, a place of sharp angles and deep, humming shadows. We're going to Manhattan. Imagine standing on the corner of Fifth Avenue and 61st Street in the dead of winter, 1972. The air is so cold it feels like a solid thing against your cheeks. The last of the yellow cabs have hurried home, their tire tracks leaving dark lines on the snowy streets. Across the way, a grand hotel rises into the night sky like a palace from a forgotten story. This is the Pierre, a place of quiet luxury, of mink coats and hushed conversations over crystal glasses. Tonight, it is a sleeping giant, and deep inside its warm, silent halls, something is about to happen. Not a crash or a bang or a shout, but something quieter, something that moves like a ghost through the walls. Somewhere in a small, tidy apartment in Queens, a man we'll call Samuel is looking at a blueprint. He is not a gangster, he is a craftsman, a man who understands the secret language of tumblers and gears. The tools on his workbench are not for breaking things, but for persuading them to open. He is about to conduct a symphony of silence in a place that never stops making noise. His crew is small, and they have been practicing their patience for months, letting it settle deep in their bones until it became a kind of strength. So, before we step into that cold January night, take a moment to find your own stillness. Let the day fall away. We're going to move slowly through this story, step by silent step. Let the rhythm of the words be a soft current, carrying you gently toward rest. Settle in, and let's slip into the heart of this silent invasion. The workshop smells faintly of machine oil and cold metal. A small electric heater in the corner glows a soft, patient orange, fighting a quiet battle against the winter chill seeping through the window frame. Samuel stands by the workbench. One hand rests on a set of blueprints. The other holds a small, intricate brass lock he has been studying for weeks. He turns it over and over, not with his eyes, but with his fingertips, feeling the tiny, invisible seams, learning its secrets. New York, outside his window, is a distant, muffled roar, a city of a million urgent heartbeats. But in this room, time moves differently. It moves at the speed of a watchmaker's hand, slow, deliberate, and certain. Samuel is a man in his 50s, but his eyes hold the deep, calm focus of someone much older, someone who has learned that the loudest voices are rarely the most important. He inherited this quiet from his father, a man who fixed clocks and believed that any problem, no matter how complex, could be understood if you just listened to it long enough. The air holds a kind of pressure, like a secret that's about to break. Not loudly, but with that quiet, satisfying click of a safe tumbler falling into place. Behind him, the door to the workshop opens with a soft click. His associate, a man we'll call Bobby, steps in, shaking snow from his coat. Bobby is tired in a way that settles deep in the bones. He is the opposite of Samuel. He is smooth, charming, a man who wears a smile like a well-tailored suit. He is the face of the operation, the one who can walk into any room and make people feel at ease. "They're ready," Bobby says, his voice a low murmur. "The car is clean. The reservation is confirmed." Samuel turns, placing the brass lock back on its velvet cloth without a sound. Inside, a group of men wait. They're not from Manhattan. They're from neighborhoods with harder edges, tougher hands, and deeper skepticism. They're not here for small talk. They're here to see if this quiet craftsman is for real. This was Samuel, the architect of a plan born from a city blueprint and a deep boredom with ordinary problems. He ruled his workshop not like an artist, but like a meticulous planner who hated crooked frames and blurry details. He was about to apply that same precision to a hotel vault. The silence he's cultivated wraps around the men like a threat. The conversation is brief, whispered. They discuss the hotel's security rotation, the thickness of the vault door, the patrol schedule of the 19th precinct. A problem has come up. A new security guard has been hired. A young man, eager, who sometimes makes an extra, unscheduled round. Samuel listens more than he speaks. His fingers tap the table. A slow, steady rhythm. His own. "We could create a distraction on another floor," one of the men says, his voice a low gravel. "Pull him away." Samuel looks up finally. "Neither," he says. "We don't change the plan, we add a new step." There's a pause, not a challenge, just the sound of professionals recalculating the odds around a new variable. This craftsman doesn't speak like a thug, but his stillness is louder than any threat they've ever heard. It's deliberate, like counting out cash in a room full of people you don't quite trust. After the meeting, Samuel walks to the small kitchen in his apartment. He makes a cup of tea, letting the steam warm his hands. He does this every night before a job, a small ritual of normalcy. Above the sink, a single framed photograph hangs, a complex clockwork mechanism, its hundreds of tiny gears and springs exposed. His father's masterpiece. He climbs a small fire escape to the roof. He does this every night. He returns to the place where the wind has no agenda, where the city becomes a map of lights, where he can feel the weight of his plan without anyone seeing his shoulders tense. Tonight, though, he thinks he sees someone on a distant rooftop watching him through binoculars. Or maybe it's just a trick of the light. It doesn't matter. He knows he's being watched. By the police, by rival crews, by the universe itself. When you plan something this big, you become the center of a gravity well. He sits on the cold tar paper, the city spread before him like a promise. The heater is still humming below. Shadows crawl across the walls of his workshop. In the distance, the faint wail of a siren rises and falls, a lonely sound in the vast, cold night. Someone's emergency, or someone's celebration of a deal gone wrong. Samuel's phone buzzes. A message from a number with no name. The uniforms are in the locker. He deletes it without replying. The entrance to the plan is not through a broken window or forced door. It is through the grand, well-lit lobby of the Pierre Hotel itself. At 2 a.m. on a Sunday, a sleek black limousine pulls up to the curb, its engine a low, expensive purr. The snow has lightened to a gentle flurry, dusting the hotel's awnings in white. A man we'll call Al is already there. The muscle. A big man, broad and silent, who moved with a surprising grace. He was the physical presence, the unspoken threat that ensured their quiet plans would not be interrupted by noise. He sits in a parked car across the street, a thermos of coffee beside him, his eyes never leaving the hotel entrance. He is waiting for a signal.
Then, casually, one of the men mentions a problem. The night manager, a man named Rossi, is ex-military. Strict. Unflappable. Samuel interrupts. "Repeat that." The man blinks. "I said, the manager is a tough one, not easily intimidated." "Good," Samuel says. "Intimidation is loud. We will be quiet." The man smiles, too slowly, and Samuel knows this isn't just a briefing. This is the final test. He stands. No anger, no outburst, just a profound stillness. The workshop seems to lean into his silence. "We will not threaten him," he says again, and leaves the room. On the way out, a shadow detaches from a corner, one of his lookouts. "Ready?" the man asks. Samuel nods. They never expect politeness. The next night, the regular doorman at the Pierre calls in sick, a sudden 24-hour flu. The replacement is a younger man, less experienced, less likely to notice the small details that are slightly out of place. And Samuel goes back to his rooftop. The distant watcher isn't there tonight, but a small, folded newspaper remains, tucked under a loose brick. A story about a society gala circled in red ink, a list of attendees, a map of their habits. The January morning hangs over Manhattan like a gray ghost, clinging to the steel canyons and the grand facades of the Upper East Side. The city breathes slow in the early light, but some corners of New York never really sleep. Inside one such corner, in the warm, hushed lobby of the Pierre, something quietly extraordinary is about to begin. A handful of night staff move through their routines, the clink of a glass from the bar, the soft swish of a broom on the marble floor. They are waiting for the sun. One of them, a young security guard named Michael, keeps glancing at the clock, his hands folded too tightly behind his back. He already knows the story of this night will not end with a quiet cab ride home to Queens. The signal comes, a single, dark limousine pulling up to the curb. Two men, casual in their tuxedos, emerge from the back. One smiles, the other doesn't. They don't speak to Michael. They don't need to. He understands. This is it. This is the point of no return. A few minutes later, the waiting is over. The lobby doors swish open, and the men step inside, their work boots hidden beneath the fine leather of their dress shoes. No blood, no sound, just progress. This is Samuel's preferred punctuation mark. Silent, deliberate action. At the same moment, in an apartment overlooking the East River, a woman sets down her phone. Her husband, a wealthy jeweler who keeps a private box at the Pierre, hasn't answered in hours. She thinks about calling again, then doesn't. Maybe he's just working late. Later, she'll learn his entire collection was being followed, observed, its value logged and memorized. Samuel already knows this. He's inside the limousine, behind the tinted glass, watching his men enter the hotel, not because he needs confirmation, but because sometimes, when a plan works perfectly, you need to feel the pieces click into place for yourself. Inside the car, his driver, a man we'll call Hector, lights a cigarette. "You sure this is the night?" he asks, exhaling towards the cracked dashboard. Samuel nods. "The snow is our friend. It makes people look down, not up. The city will be deaf for 3 hours." "Bold," he leans back, watching the street. "Or stupid?" Samuel shrugs. "Sometimes they are the same thing." There's a pause. Then Samuel speaks again, slower this time. "They put a new camera in the West Service Corridor, a Panasonic." Hector turns his head. "You think we are being watched?" "I know we are."
Many people still think that old-school heists are about brute force, that you smash a wall, grab the cash, and run. But Samuel wasn't a smasher. He was a student of systems. He knew that every fortress has a flaw, a blind spot, a place where the architects got lazy or overconfident. And for the Pierre, that flaw was its own politeness, its own rhythm. But unlike some of his crew, he had to deal with a new generation of security, men who believed in silent alarms and motion detectors, and detectives who could replace intuition with algorithms. Case in point, the hotel's head of security, a man everyone called the Colonel, not his real name. His real name was Fitzpatrick, but no one had called him that since he started wearing three-piece suits and carrying a walking stick he didn't need. He was disciplined, arrogant, and disturbingly good at his job. Samuel disliked him, not because the Colonel was a threat, but because he was unpredictable in the wrong way. He didn't understand subtlety. He didn't know when to be quiet. And worst of all, he had a habit of calling the front desk at random hours of the night just to check in. So when Samuel receives word that the Colonel has a new girlfriend,
A flight attendant who works the red-eye to Paris. He doesn't send a warning. He sends a tip. An anonymous call to the airline mentioning a potential security risk on her flight, forcing a mandatory crew debrief that will last for hours. The colonel's girlfriend, who has been looking forward to her night off, is annoyed. The colonel, who knows his girlfriend is not a security risk, is immediately suspicious. He cancels his dinner plans. He spends the entire night on the phone trying to figure out who made the call, convinced a rival is trying to get him fired. He never once thinks to call the Pierre. Message received. Meanwhile, Samuel returns to his ritual. The rooftop, the wind, the cup of tea. Tonight, he's not alone. His wife joins him, bringing 2 steaming mugs. She doesn't ask what he's planning. She doesn't need to. She just sits beside him. "You're thinking again," she says. He considers. "No," he says, "just listening." And that somehow sounds more honest than anything else he said all day. Down below, the city continues to breathe. And Samuel, he listens to the streets, to the silence, to the tiny noises that tell him when something's off. Because this city doesn't yell, it whispers. And tonight, you hear something new. The faint, rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape of a snowplow miles away, muffled by the buildings. It's subtle, another crew maybe, or just the city doing its job. He turns toward the edge of the rooftop. The phone buzzes once. New message. We're in. He stares into the dark. This isn't about money anymore. It's about art. The kind that doesn't belong in a museum. The kind that gets people erased without explanation. He slips the phone into his pocket and walks down the stairs, slower now, measured. By the time he reaches the alley behind the building, Hector is already waiting. Car ready? Surface route or stick to the park? Samuel doesn't answer immediately. He glances at the streetlight flickering above them, then back at the window of his workshop, still glowing a soft orange. Neither, he says. We go to the bridge. Hector swallows. He knows what that means. That's where the old Irish loyalists still hold court, the ones who speak in whispers and move like dust. And tonight, Samuel is going to ask them for a blessing he never thought he'd need. Because when you're about to politely invade the heart of Manhattan, you need more than a plan. You need faith. The Church of St. Ignatius Loyola on Park Avenue isn't on any criminal's guide. It's the kind of place that doesn't just hide in the city, it camouflages. Tucked between grand apartment buildings, its stone walls are stained with wealth and memory. At night, it smells like incense and old money. During the day, it smells like nothing, like the place learned how to erase its own presence. Samuel moves through the nave as if stepping back in time. No tour groups here, no selfie sticks, just the distant hum of a city too busy to notice its own history. He stops before a small side chapel, half hidden behind old scaffolding. A tiny carving near the altar, a barely visible Celtic knot, the kind of mark only the old families would recognize.
He kneels, waits, then taps the floor twice. This time, quick. A section of the flagstone shifts without a sound. No creak, no greeting, just an old man in a dark suit who motions with his head. Samuel steps down into the crypt. The corridor is lined with crumbling mosaics. At the end of the crypt, a single wooden chair sits beneath a faded fresco of a forgotten saint. "Sit," the old man says, his voice like dry leaves rustling. Samuel obeys. It's been years since he's spoken to Mr. Finnegan, not because of disrespect, but because people like Mr. Finnegan aren't part of the new world. Their legacy, like old maps in a drawer no one opens, quiet, dependable, and only used when you're truly lost. "You look like a man about to commit a sin or a miracle," Mr. Finnegan says, not unkindly. "I'm not sure which yet." "Good," the old man replies, "because the saints have no patience left for certainty." Samuel takes a breath. The hotel is ready. The team is in place. But the timing... Mr. Finnegan raises an eyebrow. The snowstorm. It's not enough. The new guard is too unpredictable. The old man stands, walks to an alcove behind the chair, and pulls out a folded police union memo. He holds it like it's dipped in holy water. You ever hear of the 19th Precinct's coffee break schedule? Samuel shakes his head. Exactly, the old man mutters, because that's what the city wants. He hands the paper over. On it, a schedule. 3:15 a.m. A 15-minute window where patrol cars from 3 adjacent sectors converge at a diner on Lexington. A union rule, unofficial, but unbreakable. The whole neighborhood will be looking away, listening to their own conversations. A memory prickles at the edge of Samuel's mind. A coffee break? They do this every night, Mr. Finnegan corrects. And if someone's politely taking over a hotel at the exact same time, well, even the commissioner can't be everywhere at once. Samuel folds the paper. Mr. Finnegan leans in. Tell me, Samuel, do you feel the ground shifting? Samuel nods once. Mr. Finnegan sighs. Then be careful where you plant your next step. New York doesn't forgive hesitation. Back outside, the sky begins to soften. That fine winter mist that doesn't fall but lingers, clinging to hair and collarbones. Samuel doesn't hurry. He walks with the kind of pace that says, I'm not lost, but I'm not arriving either. By the time he reaches the car, Hector is already inside. The priest say anything useful? He gave me a timetable for the police. You knew? Hector shrugs. Only from whispers, ghost stories. A man who builds clocks that can stop time. Samuel doesn't smile. He left a trail this time. They drive in silence for a while, passing crumbling walls sprayed with graffiti that probably meant something once. One reads, Trust only silence. Later that night, Samuel returns to his workshop, peels off his jacket, and stands at the sink. He stares at his reflection longer than usual. He doesn't see himself. He sees his father, the quiet clockmaker, the man who once spent an hour fixing a tiny gear so a music box would play its tune just right. Quiet dignity, obsessive control, and above all, the belief that chaos could be managed. Was Samuel trying to inherit that belief, or just wear it like a suit too big for his shoulders? He turns on the small desk lamp. The room feels better in amber light. Elsewhere, in a quiet apartment in the Bronx, 3 men huddle over a set of hotel uniforms. One irons a shirt, one polishes a pair of shoes. The third, silent, takes notes in a book designed to be burned. In their hands, the final piece of equipment, a custom-made set of keys. Not copies, originals, pressed from molds made by a hotel insider who no longer exists. They won't pick the final locks. They'll open them. Samuel knows, one of them whispers. He's not chasing. He's waiting. A pause. And that's worse. The next morning, Samuel doesn't go to the rooftop. He goes to a small diner in Astoria. Real coffee, old vinyl booths, a cook who doesn't know what avocado toast is. The waitress knows Samuel by sight, but not by name. The usual? She asks. Samuel nods. He takes his coffee and sits at a tiny table by the window. Across the street, a man pretends to read a newspaper for 20 minutes. Samuel lets him, then stands, walks across calmly, and drops a sugar packet by the man's shoe. Next time you tail me, he says softly, try a different hat. The man doesn't look up, but later that day, he's pulled from surveillance duty. Quietly, no reprimand, no promotion, just gone, like a file removed from a cabinet. That night, Samuel goes back to the hotel. Not inside. He sits in a car across the street. This time it's he who's asked for the meeting. Same car, same cold air, but this time the others wait for him. He lets them gather first. Then, with a slow breath, he places a folded blueprint of the Pierre on the dashboard. Every corridor marked, some circled, some underlined, and at the center, the vault. Things are moving, he says. No, one man corrects. Things are about to break. Samuel folds the blueprint again, then says, maybe it's time they did.
Because fixing a broken system doesn't mean rebuilding it the same way. Sometimes it means drawing a new map and watching who follows it first. The hotel lobby isn't a place that wakes. It just shifts. Like a sleeping animal that senses it's being watched, but doesn't bother opening its eyes. By 2 a.m., the heat of the day has long dissipated, but the warmth of the hotel remains, pooling in the corridors and creeping up the marble walls. Limousines glide through the streets above. Men in sharp suits lean on bar counters like they're in a movie poster. Sharp suits, quick eyes, and the unmistakable posture of those who know the police are busy with other people's problems tonight. And in the midst of it all are the men in the car. They're not soldiers, not yet. They're craftsmen, specialists, ghosts in training. Men with hands too calloused for office work and minds too sharp for honest work. Most of them don't know more than a few first names, but they know their job. They know which elevators go to the penthouse and which go to the basement. They know how to move in the dark even when no one else is moving. And crucially, they know who signs the unspoken paycheck. Samuel sees them everywhere now, even in his sleep. On corners, refueling with coffee and sandwiches, sharing a flask of cheap whiskey with a kind of camaraderie that hasn't yet met betrayal. He knows their rhythms better than they do. He used to be one of them, not in a crew, but in the army. He rode with them, watched, listened. One of them, a wiry electronics expert called Sparks, has just finished disabling a minor alarm sensor, a small, delicate procedure designed to create a blind spot without triggering a system-wide alert. He wipes his hands on a rag and leans against a cold lamppost, waiting.
Samuel, wearing a dark overcoat and a driver's cap, approaches on foot. Casual, quiet. "Sparks," he says. The man jumps, then quickly lowers his eyes. "Mr. S." "Easy," Samuel says. "You set the bypass?" Sparks nods. "To the microsecond, just like the diagram." "And the feedback loop?" "Clean. The system thinks it's still online, no questions." But what? There was a cop down here, a beat cop." Samuel studies the man for a moment. "Did you remember his face?" "Yeah," Sparks says, smiling like he's just passed a test. "Young, and not looking at us." Samuel memorizes the detail. "Good. He did well." Is this about the money?" the man asks, his voice cracking just slightly. "No," Samuel says. "It's about art." Sparks doesn't ask what kind. Smart man. Later that day, Samuel sits in a rented room overlooking Central Park. The sound of horse-drawn carriages coats the air. There's a ceiling fan with 5 blades wobbling like it's had one too many glasses of scotch. Across from him sits an old forger with a crooked nose and fewer morals than a deck of cards. The forger used to make IDs for the big players in the 60s, back when the family still wore hats to meetings. These days, he mostly drinks tea and complains about the price of ink. "You remember the cop?" Samuel asks. The forger nods. "Yeah, young, Irish, O'Malley. Came over from the 7th Precinct last week. The old-timers are talking. The transfer was from downtown." "The woman he was with?" The forger shrugs. "Could be anyone. The park is crawling with ghosts these days. Could be FBI, could be private security, or worse," Samuel murmurs. The forger leans forward. "You think this is about the vault again?" Samuel nods. "Too many people sniffing around. It's like they think the game is about the jewels. It's about the silence." The forger chuckles dryly. "Maybe it is, but the rats always follow the cheese." That evening, the streets around the Pierre fill with late-night traffic. Limousines delivering guests, taxis picking them up. One of them, a plain-clothes policeman, notices Samuel watching from a parked car and freezes for just a second, then pretends not to. That's how respect moves now. Not in salutes or rings kissed, but in pauses that say, "I know who you are, even if I act like I don't." Samuel stays there a while, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning not for threats, but for patterns. There's a rhythm to this city, like a song always on loop, but lately a few notes have changed. The police are looking over their shoulders more often. The old-timers are staying inside. And the whispers, always in motion, have shifted tone. One in particular, a new player is in town. No one says a name. No one needs to, because every time power shifts, someone tests the wire.
Samuel leaves before midnight. On his way back, he takes the long route past a jazz club with its shattered sign and graffiti that reads, "We are still here." He walks past a vendor selling roasted chestnuts, still somehow a thing. And finally, through the alley where a man once left an envelope full of cash under a broken brick. He kneels, pulls the brick loose. Nothing there. But now the ritual is complete. He can go back. Back at his workshop, he pours a glass of water and sips it slowly. The heater hums like it's tired of pretending to work. He steps onto the fire escape. The city spreads below him, endless and quiet, and not his. Not really, just on loan. And in that quiet, his walkie-talkie buzzes again, this time a voice. Unfamiliar, calm, male, English accent. "Mr. Samuel," he says, "you are not being careful enough. The cop you saw had friends. The vault is one target. There are others." A pause. "And some of us still know how to send messages that don't require a car." Click. Silence. Samuel doesn't move. He stands there, letting the wind lift the edges of his collar. He turns off the walkie-talkie, then immediately calls Bobby. "It's real," Samuel says. The English voice. "No worse. It's organized." Bobby doesn't curse. He doesn't breathe loud. He just says, "So now what?" Samuel looks out across the concrete, down into the courtyard where children's toys lie abandoned in the snow. We listen for the silence. Bobby chuckles. "You think the snow will cover us?" "It always does, even when it's not supposed to. Because in New York, the quietest snowfall can carry the loudest secret, and sometimes the road to the truth starts with nothing more than a whisper and a very patient hand." The alley smells like wet pavement and diesel. There's something oddly comforting about it, like a Sunday dinner interrupted by a silent alarm. Samuel walks with a slow rhythm, his shoes scuffing softly against the worn cobblestones. Overhead, fire escapes zigzag up the brick walls like iron skeletons. New York is always showing its bones. He stops outside a rusted iron gate marked only by a faded sign, "Precision Instrument Repair." There's no shop anymore, and the owner hasn't been seen in years. But inside that forgotten space, tucked beneath layers of broken tools and discarded schematics, is a man Samuel hasn't spoken to in months. Arthur. They called him the Ghost because he was an expert in bypassing alarm systems without leaving a trace. Arthur was a loyalist from the old guard, a remnant. And tonight, Samuel needed a remnant. He pushes the gate. It creaks open like it's waking from a long nap. Arthur sits behind a metal desk, sleeves rolled, a magnifying visor perched on his forehead. He's soldering a tiny circuit board with a pair of tweezers. It's hard to tell if he's repairing something or preparing something. "You have aged," Arthur says without looking up. "Not older, wiser." "We'll see." Arthur gestures at the chair across from him. Samuel sits. There's a team, English, connected to a voice on the radio that shouldn't exist. They speak in riddles, send messages that evaporate. "Haha, one of those," Arthur chuckles. "Their name might be connected to someone from London, a man named the Gent." That earns a twitch from Arthur. The soldering iron pauses midair. I haven't heard that name in a long time, which usually means it's the right one. Is he still active? Not in the traditional sense. Samuel waits.
Arthur eventually continues, voice lower now. The Gent didn't retire. He disappeared just before a massive shipment of diamonds vanished en route to Antwerp. Everyone assumed he was killed. I didn't. He was always 3 steps ahead of his own betrayal, and the team could be the crew he was grooming to replace him. He used to say, "I want men who understand both balance sheets and blasting caps."
A romantic idiot, Samuel says.
Maybe both, Arthur replies, nodding. They sit in silence for a moment. Outside, a siren wails past, followed by the sound of a woman arguing with someone from her window in melodramatic Spanish. Then, Arthur leans in. He left you a message, didn't he? Yes. And you didn't answer? I did. And now he says there are others. Arthur leans back. Then you're already behind. By the time Samuel exits the building, the sky is shifted into that hazy city gray where the light seems to press against the buildings rather than illuminate them. He walks to the corner where Hector waits inside a black sedan. He has a name, Samuel says, sliding in. Go on. The Gent. Sounds like a character in a bad film. He's real. Might be connected to a missing diamond shipment. Might be a freelance spook. Might be both. So what now? We send him a gift. The gift is simple. A rare first edition book on clockmaking, delivered via motorcycle courier to a hotel suite he's never officially checked into. Tucked inside the dust jacket is a microdot, empty. No code, no data, just the outline of a possibility. Samuel doesn't include a note because the message isn't about the content. It's about knowing where he is. Hours later, a single image appears on Samuel's pager, a photo of the open book, taken on a silk tablecloth with a pistol in the background pointed just slightly out of frame. The Gent has responded. That night, Samuel doesn't go home. He walks to a jazz club in the village where the lights are low and the saxophone burns just enough to keep you humble. The owner, Marcus, is in his 70s and still calls him the clockman. Even though Samuel once arranged the disappearance of his cousin's gambling debts, it's water under the bridge now. Samuel sits in the corner, orders nothing, waits. Marcus brings him a folded napkin and sets it down with theatrical flair. Inside the napkin, a note. The doormen talk more than they should. The jewelers still count even when they're closed. Meet me where the music used to bleed. No signature, but Samuel doesn't need one. The music used to bleed at an abandoned recording studio on the edge of the meatpacking district, a place where rust outnumbers people and cats hiss at nothing. He gets up, leaves the club, nods at Marcus, and vanishes into the night.
The studio smells of mildew and magnetic tape. Even after years, the scent doesn't go. It clings to the bricks like regret. He's already there, the Gent, standing beside a broken window, lit by nothing but the orange spill of distant streetlights. He wears a gray coat, hair perfectly combed, eyes like he's measuring every possibility of betrayal within a 5-meter radius. You found me, he says. You invited me. Fair. A beat. You're smarter than they say, he adds. That's why I'm not in jail. The Gent almost smiles. Yet. They walk through the empty corridors, past soundproofed walls and stained floorboards. It feels like walking inside a clock that's been long since stopped. You want to know why I'm here, he says. Samuel doesn't respond. The Gent continues anyway. The vault is not yours. It was promised to me. No, it was promised near me. That's not the same. He stops walking. Are you working for the government? The Gent stops too. I'm working for myself. That's worse. Why involve me? Because you're not a common thief. A pause. You hesitate. That means you're still an artist. That lands heavier than it should. Then he adds, also, I needed to know if you could track a ghost. You did. You tested me. No. I introduced myself. He steps closer. Samuel doesn't flinch. There are 3 other targets in this city. One's in a bank, one's in a museum. The third, I'm not even sure it exists. What's in them? Histories and futures. Then he hands him a card, blank on one side. On the back, a number. 12 digits, no area code. Call it, he says. And either everything ends or begins. Before Samuel can ask another question, he walks out. No goodbye, no parting shot.
just the sound of his leather shoes scuffing across dust-covered tiles. And in the distance, a foghorn starts to blow. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's someone walking away with too many secrets. The number on the card stares up at Samuel from the dashboard of the sedan like it's breathing. 12 digits. No country code. Not formatted like a phone number. More like a bank account or a password from a different life. He hasn't called it. Not yet. The car's heater fan clicks softly, like it's reminding him that waiting has a sound. Outside, the streets of New York move through their nightly symphony. Music spilling from bars, tires hissing on wet asphalt, sirens wailing faintly in the distance. But the car is quiet. It always is when he's deciding something. Silence has weight in Samuel's world. It presses on his ribs. He picks up the card again. Still cold, still blank. He turns it over one more time just in case something's changed. It hasn't.
In another part of town, his wife is sleeping. The tools in his workshop are clean. The men in the crew are waiting for the snow. The whole world is holding its breath. He starts the car and drives. Not home, not to the hotel, but up to the cloisters. He stops at a scenic overlook. The city is a blanket of lights below. He takes out a small encrypted radio, a relic from his days in the service. He keys in the 12-digit number. The radio hisses, crackles, then a voice. Not the gent, a woman, crisp, British accent. "You're slow," she says. "Try again. London." That's it. No threats, no promises. Just an instruction wrapped in condescension. He closes his eyes for a moment, then dials a number on a burner phone he's kept saved under the name Art Supply. The man on the other end doesn't sell paint, but he does know how to get a package to London without being seen. When the line picks up, Samuel says only 2 words: "Start packing." 2 days later, they meet on the outskirts of the city, at a small private airfield in New Jersey. It's colder than it should be. Gray sky, wind off the water, and that heavy, restless air like everyone's carrying a secret in their coat pocket. Hector parks the car beside an old diner with chipped tables and a waiter who hasn't smiled since the Dodgers left Brooklyn. The kind of place you only go when you don't want to be remembered. Inside, a man behind the counter gestures with his chin. "Back room," he says. Samuel walks in. The room is small, dim. A single bulb swings slowly, casting shadows that dance like they're mocking him. The gent is there again. This time he's holding a briefcase, still closed, still sealed, still humming with the possibility of ruin. "You came," he says, sipping from a glass of mineral water. "You called." He smiles faintly. "That's the difference between you and the others." "Explain." "They would have sent someone." Samuel pulls out the book on clockmaking, the one with the microdot. He holds it up. "Is this you?" The jet looks at it, then takes a lighter from his pocket and sets the book on fire. The pages curl, blacken, disintegrate in a metal trash can. He doesn't answer. "You're protecting someone," Samuel says. "No," he replies. "I'm protecting the plan." Samuel laughs once, dry. "I don't need protecting." The gent leans in, his voice like steam. "You're holding a match near a room full of gas, Samuel, and the people inside are already choking." A beat. "What happens when you light it anyway?" He doesn't reply. Because he already knows, and yet he's not going to stop. The airfield at dusk doesn't whisper the way the city does. It hums, a low, electric thrum of engines and secrets kept behind chain-link fences. The air carries the smell of jet fuel and exhaust. Hangar lights bleed into the twilight, promising departures that were never meant to be logged. In a place built on the illusion of escape, Samuel moves like a foreign equation, understood but unwelcome. The diner behind him fades into night as the car pulls onto the tarmac. Hector drives with one hand, the other casually resting on the door handle like he's prepared to exit at any moment. Neither of them speaks. They don't have to. The briefcase sits on Samuel's lap, still cold, still sealed,
and still heavier than its contents should allow. Want me to take it to the safe house? No. And that's the end of that. They passed two mechanics smoking outside a hangar, coveralls stained with grease, eyes that have seen too much. Win or lose, it's always a bet. Samuel closes his eyes just for a second, long enough to hear a memory. His father, the clockmaker, sitting in his dusty workshop, the old man speaking with that dry patience only true craftsmen have. Precision is cheap if you don't test it. And trust, young Samuel had asked. You don't buy it, his father said. You build it, gear by gear. The safe house is misnamed. It's not a house. It's a rented room in a motel that still smells of cheap cigars and regret. The room holds a bed, a lamp with a crooked shade, and a plastic bag full of burner phones. Hector helps Samuel unload without questions.
Once inside, Samuel sets the briefcase on the table and inspects the lock. It's not mechanical, it's electronic. He tilts the case, feels the internal mechanism shift, balanced like a bomb. "What now?" Hector asks. Samuel pulls the card from his pocket, the one with the 12-digit number. It doesn't open it. Of course it doesn't. This isn't about numbers. It never was. The gent had said there were other targets. The briefcase in New York was an invitation. This one is a test. He turns to Hector. "Get me someone who understands British security systems and has very small hands." Hector gives him a look, then nods and pulls out a phone. 30 minutes later, a woman arrives, maybe 30 years old, with an oversized toolkit and tired eyes. She plugs a small device into the briefcase, boots up a handheld terminal, and stares at the lock like it's a puzzle box from an old myth. "It's pressure sensitive," she mutters. "We can't crack it without the original schematic or a complete power surge." "Then surge it." "I need time. You have until the first flight to London leaves." The woman blinks and gets to work. While the terminal clicks and worries, Samuel steps outside. The New Jersey air is thick, heavy, with the scent of salt and industry. Somewhere nearby, a plane takes off, its engines roaring across the sky. Bobby calls. "You alive?" he asks. "For now." "Any word from the gent?" "He burned the only clue I had." "So that's a no." "He says he's protecting the plan." Bobby snorts. That's what people say when they're about to sell you out. There's silence between them. Then Samuel says, "If this briefcase has what I think it has, everything changes." Bobby's voice flattens. "So don't open it." "I have to." "No, you want to. You think it's the next step." "Maybe it is. Or maybe it's the last." The call ends. The heater fan in the car turns in his mind, back in that diner, always ticking. Back inside, the woman frowns. "I need 1 more hour." "You said 3. I said I need 3. You gave me 2. Samuel doesn't argue. Instead, he flips through a flight magazine he found. This time, he notices something he hadn't before, a small classified ad tucked into the back pages. "Lost. 1 English gentleman. Last seen chasing ghosts. Reward offered." He pulls it. Out slides a photo older than the others, faded, corners curled. A young gent smiling, and beside him, unmistakably, the British woman from the radio, standing in a room full of wires and servers, the early days of signals intelligence.
Samuel stares at the background, and that's when he sees it. A schematic pinned to the wall, a briefcase lock. He takes a photo with the micro camera, shows it to the lockpicker. "That's it," she says. "That's the bypass." She types in a new code. The briefcase hisses open with a sound like steam escaping a cracked pipe. Inside, nothing. No documents, no drive, just a folded napkin. And on the napkin, "Good. You knew not to trust the lock. Now we see if you trust the silence." Beneath it, another 12-digit number. Hector reads it. "Another code?" "No," Samuel mutters. "Another destination." He closes the case, slower this time. Every move now, every trip, every conversation, it's choreography. The gent's choreography. But the difference between a puppet and a partner is choice. And Samuel, he's still choosing, even when it feels like he's not. As they leave the motel, the first plane to London roars overhead.
Samuel notices something scrawled into the doorframe near the exit. Not graffiti, a chalk mark. You can follow the ghosts, just don't become one. He touches the groove of the letters. They're fresh. And suddenly, he's not sure who's watching who. And as we leave Samuel there in the cold, humming quiet of that airfield, let the story pause for a moment. Let your own mind settle. Let the distant roar of engines fade into the soft rhythm of your own breathing. Feel the weight of your body, comfortable and still. There are more secrets to uncover, more quiet rooms to enter, but for now, there is only this moment of rest. Allow yourself to drift. We will pick up the story again, slowly, after you've had a chance to let go. The city doesn't welcome him back with open arms. It watches him return like a parent who knows you've been up to no good, indifferent on the surface, worried just beneath. As Samuel steps off the train at Grand Central, the air feels heavier, more humid. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's the knowledge that every police informant has already pinged his location. He exits through a side gate. No fanfare, no escort. Just the hum of wheels, the murmur of crowds, and one man walking into a network of invisible wires, each step tugging gently at loyalties he's not even sure he still has. The second 12-digit number from the decoy briefcase didn't unlock anything. Not a safe, not a door, not a phone line. It simply brought him home with more questions than when he left. Back in his workshop, the tools had been rearranged. New faces in the crew, slightly older. The ones Samuel knew, the ones from the outer boroughs, had started disappearing from their usual haunts. Some have vanished altogether. One man, maybe 50, catches his eye. A new recruit. Too clean. Samuel doesn't know his name. He just watches. The man notices, nods once, then turns away. Seconds later, a message appears on Samuel's pager. Hotel Vault, Level 2, midnight, alone. That's the target, where the air is thick with the smell of money and reinforced concrete. Midnight at the Pierre is eerie. During the day, it's all crisp suits and doormen with forced smiles. At night, its security camera hums and motion-activated lights that flicker on long after you've passed them. Samuel waits in the service tunnel below. He's alone. At 12:04 a.m., a man in a hotel uniform approaches from a side passage. He's not tall, not imposing, just efficient. The kind of man who probably irons his shoelaces. "You're Samuel," he says, not a question. "And you?" The man smiles faintly. "An errand." He pulls out a tape recorder, presses play. The gent's voice. "Don't trust the alarms. Their silence reflects the wrong parts of the system." A pause. "You're closer now, but the next step isn't through the door. It's behind." Then silence. The man pockets the recorder, hands Samuel an envelope. Inside, a key card, time-stamped 1407, issued for Maintenance Closet B, sub-basement. The man leaves without a word.
Samuel doesn't follow. He doesn't need to. The next morning, he drives himself. No escort, no Bobby. He uses a forged work order to get into the hotel's sub-basement, scanning the concrete for the closet marked on the key card. Level 3, Row C, Slot 17. He finds it locked. Of course, he uses the key card. It works. He steps out, checks the wall behind the shelves. A smudge of fresh paint, different shade of gray. He knocks. Hollow. Samuel retrieves a small crowbar from his toolkit, kneels, gently taps the edge of the paint. Flakes begin to fall, then a seam, then a panel. He slides it aside. Inside, a narrow crawl space, and at the far end, lit by a single bare bulb, another briefcase. This one is different. Worn leather, no lock. He pulls it out and opens it right there on the concrete floor. Inside, a folded schematic of the vault's alarm system marked with 3 red dots, a burner phone with no contacts, and a sealed manila envelope. He opens the envelope. Inside, a photograph taken 2 days ago of Bobby sitting with a man Samuel doesn't recognize. Across from them,
the British woman from the radio. The photo is grainy, but the implication is queer. He's been played. Back in his car, Samuel doesn't move for a long time, not because he's frozen, because he's calculating. If Bobby is talking to the British team without telling him, it means one of two things. 1, Bobby is trying to protect him. 2, Bobby is trying to replace him. Neither option feels good. He stares at the burner phone, then powers it on. One message waits, from a contact called simply K. This isn't betrayal, Samuel. It's a different kind of loyalty. Call me when you're ready to stop performing as the gentle thief. He closes the phone. That's the second time someone's accused him of being a performer. And maybe they're not wrong. But what if the performance isn't weakness? What if it's camouflage? That evening, Samuel returns to his rooftop. The folded newspaper is gone. The photo of the gent and the British woman gone too. Only the heater remains, still humming, still glowing. He adds something beside it. The new photo. Bobby, the woman, the unknown man. Then he sits on the tar paper, legs crossed, no drink, no smoke, just the sounds of the city. Sirens whining, babies crying, televisions too loud through thin walls. He picks up the burner again and texts back, "Tell me what's next." No reply yet. Meanwhile, in a government building not marked on any map, 2 analysts sit before a bank of monitors. One sips cold tea, the other types rapidly. They pause on a frame. Samuel crawling out of the maintenance closet. The camera above had no business being operational, but it was. They zoom in, enhance the briefcase, the schematic, the phone. One analyst turns to the other. He's in deeper than we thought, or exactly where she wants him. Should we inform Task Force V? No. Pause. Let the story play. We're learning more from watching. The screen flickers and Samuel, completely unaware of the watchers, drives off into the New York dusk, pursuing a shadow he might never catch. Or worse, one he might already have become. Let that feeling settle. The quiet complexity, the hum of the city, the weight of a secret. Let it be a soft blanket for your mind. There's no need to follow every twist and turn. Just let the sound of the story be a gentle rhythm, a steady, calming presence as you drift deeper into rest. The city will keep its secrets. You can let yours go for the night. Sleep now. Sleep well.